Good evening, you're watching Estuary TV News. Coming up, every second counts, the life-saving first responders of Horncastle, and Light and Shade, art made by the control and manipulation of light. And I'll be talking to that artist, James DeLuna, here in the studio. Welcome to Estuary TV News. I'm Hugh Riches. First of all, it's over to Richard Morris for the news headlines.
Hello there. Chris Shaw, the leader of North East Lincolnshire Council, has today announced that he will stand down as leader of the council at the next election in May. He's been in the job for 4 years after becoming leader of the Labour group in the council in 2004. He'll continue to be a councillor until 2016. Earlier today, I spoke to Councillor Shaw about his time in office.
I'm honouring a commitment I made back in 2003, which is that I'd put the Labour group back into control of the council. And I'd do 4 years, a full term as leader of the council. That ends in 2015. That's the end of my commitment. It's the right time to go. I think you just look around North East Lincolnshire in general to see all the wind turbine companies that have come, the new factories that have been built, the jobs and skills that's brought, the 2 new hotels, one in Cleethorpes, one in Grimsby. You know, they're all the kinds of legacies I think that the administration and myself have left over the past 4 years.
We reported yesterday that Sophie Stanton was reported missing in the local area. We can now say that she has been found safe and well in Hull. Humberside Police have thanked the public for their response to the appeal. A man has been arrested on suspicion of a fray in Withensea after causing damage to a fence using a large blade. At 11:30 last night, officers attended the incident. Armed police and police dogs were also deployed. The 49-year-old remains in police custody in connection with the incident. Cleethorpes Town FC are raising money for a new community stadium. Donations, which can be made through the club's website, will help towards a target of £300,000 from the club's fans.
The idea is to build a community stadium on the facility behind me. Whereby our first team and our under-18s and teams below us can play from there. Our first team play in the Northern Counties East League, so we have to have a certain amount of facilities to play at that level. And we need to raise money to go with the funding that becomes available to us.
That's all from me. Bye for now.
When we think of art, we think of Van Gogh, Picasso or Monet, but one man in Grimsby is now trying out a completely different form. James DeLuna experiments with light in a dark room in his house, and his work can be seen in various Lincolnshire locations, creating weird and wonderful shapes. Dan Kemp went to find out more.
If you're down in Weelsby Woods and come across a man swirling lights around himself, don't be alarmed. James Lorne, known in light photography circles as James DeLuna, for his love of photographing the moon, is making a name for himself for being at the forefront of his field.
My interest in light painting, it came from watching a video on YouTube called Light Warfare. This was a stop motion of light painting photography, so many frames stacked together in one video to make like an animation. From that I thought, well, I'd quite like to get into this, so I bought myself a shutter remote and started waving lights.
But James also has a setup at his house to practice his work, and it's easy to get started.
You can use any kind of light source really to light paint with. You could use your mobile phone, you could use LEDs, you could use LED strips, electroluminescent wire. You can use fire, you can use fireworks, you could use a flash gun, you can use glow sticks, UV makeup and a UV torch. There's lots and lots of things, basically any light source whatsoever.
And James has developed a wide range of homemade gadgets, but the principles aren't new.
Have been doing it since the dawn of photography. I could show you on a history website actually the black and white photographs that scientists took when they were trying to show the movement of horses, for example. This was in the 1800s. You can do all of it with techniques from the 70s, to be honest. It's all been around since then, apart from LEDs.
You're watching Estuary TV News. A little later in this programme, James Dunn will be here with all the news from local government, and Dan Kemp will bring you the sports news. We saw the work of light artist James DeLuna a few moments ago, and he joins me now. James, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you, Hugh.
Those images look absolutely fantastic. It's sort of hard to believe that they're created without digital manipulation of any kind.
Yes, that's correct. I always try never to use any post-production. Some images may be cropped, but other than that, we try not to.
So it's all good, honest photography, as it were. There's no cheating
Yes,
there.
exactly, yes.
And the managing to manipulate the light and get more than one image at different scales into the same frame, as it were, that's done by using one frame and just changing the lenses and changing the images before.
That's correct, just in the same exposure, swapping the lens, making sure that the lens stays dark and that the camera stays dark so you don't get light hitting the sensor in between the two lenses.
And you said there that you're using a darkroom. This is all good old-fashioned, dev stop and fix use of old-fashioned. What sort of film do you use?
Well, as I say, I actually use a digital SLR camera. I do have a film camera as well. I've done a few exposures with it. But most of my work is in digital. We use manual lenses, usually a wide-angle lens for a lot of the backgrounds, but I tend to use a telescope and a macro lens as well. That's to get the difference in scale.
What's your background? You said you've been doing this for a little while now, but do you have an artistic background?
I was a music student here at the Institute. I was very much into
Institute.
Yes, I was very much into art when I was at school, but didn't really carry it on so much until I got into photography. This was when I bought a large telescope and a DSLR to look at the night sky, and I found a video which showed me light painting.
Well, I was going to say your nom de plume, as it were, or your nom de camera is de Luna, of the moon. Yep, that's that astronomical aspect of it that's quite dominant in your work.
Yes, certainly, yes.
You're a moon worshipper.
Yes.
Sibeli and all that, quite right too. What would be your influences then? Who are the artists who you admire?
Certainly Blake and H.R. Geiger, a lot of sci-fi.
William Blake, as in the Ancient of Days,
right,
and all that sort of
yes.
thing. Yep.
A lot of sci-fi films influence my work simply because of the objects that I have lying around the house. So it's something to photograph.
Well, we saw in one of those images there was a little stormtrooper from Star Wars there,
Yeah.
wasn't there? That's, I mean, in some ways, Star Wars, if you watch Star Wars nowadays, it looks incredibly old-fashioned, doesn't it?
Yes.
Have you ever noticed that it's green writing on black screens on the computers in Star Wars?
Yes.
Do you think that you're in some ways, you're going back to an old-fashioned form, aren't you? An old-fashioned use of photography and light.
Yes, certainly.
Is there a bit of sort of a retro thing going on in your work?
Yeah, I'd say so. It's something that could be done with a film camera if you wanted it to. Other light painters certainly do a lot of film work.
Can it be transferred into a moving image form?
Well, the way we do that is by doing, say, a few images of a stormtrooper, move the stormtrooper in the frame, each frame. You'd then have him moving in a video if you put all of the frames together, say if they were, I don't know, a quarter of a second each with the amount of time on the video.
But then if you then had the frames themselves moving as well, then you effectively, you're going back to a kind of stop-go animation, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right, stop motion, yeah.
But what you're doing different is that it's the light itself that you're manipulating, isn't it? Rather than just the objects upon which the light's falling.
Yes, certainly.
You've exhibited around the world. You're a very international artist.
Yes, I have tried, yes. I've exhibited in Hong Kong, Spain, Paris. We're hoping to do a UK exhibition as soon as possible, but for that we would need sponsors and a certain amount of technicalities to carry on with it.
What's been the response? Have you had any feedback from those exhibitions?
I've had a lot of feedback from other light painters asking me how to do things, and a few fans as well, I must say. I've got 3,000 likes on Facebook, so I do think that we have quite a following. That's
impressive. Is it a popular genre? Are there many other light painters?
I'd say there's about at least 1,400 of us who regularly upload. There's 14,000 people on the Light Junkies group on Flickr. So certainly a lot of people are interested.
Light junkies, that's what you call
Yes, that's what we
yourselves,
called the group, yes.
Okay. How do you do for sales? Do you sell any work?
I've sold one print ever to another American light painter.
That's enough. That makes you a professional,
Okay.
doesn't it? Do you think you ever can make a living out of creating work like this, or is it really just a matter of who cares? If Van Gogh only sold 2 paintings. Who cares if you sell anything?
Well, possibly, yeah. I mean, to me, it's a labour of love, really. But there are light painters who are in advertising, sponsored by people like Nike and Reebok. So certainly big companies do take an interest in it if you are what they are looking for.
You can see, I've seen, now you mention advertising, I've seen references to the sort of work you do in advertising. It's there, isn't it? But I suspect they cheat and do it digitally.
I suspect that too.
I suspect that's not the way they do it. Have you ever thought of working in other forms of art? I mean, forgive me for being old-fashioned, but maybe you could pick up a paintbrush.
Yeah, I do stencils in my light painting photography, so I'm very much someone who would cut things out of cardboard and make collages. Certainly I'd have a go at that. Yeah.
Well, that's Henri Matisse, isn't it? I mean, his great silhouettes created out of cardboard, and that's what he used. So what's your approach then? If you're coming up with these, it's a matter of design, isn't it, and composition as much as anything else?
Yes, I mean, a lot of people just try what comes into their head. If you have a shutter remote and a DSLR that can take a long exposure, any camera that can take a long exposure really, then you can wave the lights, pop a flash gun to get someone in an image more than once in different positions. You could have them with 6 arms. You just have to light those arms after you've lit the person in different positions.
But you've also, I mean, as well as having control over that visual impact, you've also got the control over not just colour, as you would have in a canvas, but you have control over the brightness and the contrast and the intensity
certainly.
as well.
Using manual lenses, we can actually change aperture mid-shot. So you can, say, use fire and LEDs in the same exposure, whereas on one aperture, that would actually overexpose when you do the fire.
Where can people go to see your work, James?
They can see it on my Facebook page, they can see it on my Flickr page, or you can come out to Wheelsby Woods with me one night and try it.
So you'd welcome taking people with you?
I certainly do, very much, yes.
Would you want one person to be waving a torch around and another person as a sort of a model for you?
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes the greatest of light paintings can be done in this way, when you have help.
And James, just quickly remind that website address as well that you mentioned, people can have a look at your work.
It's I have it with me.
It was a Flickr account, you said, was it?
Yes, it's flickr.com, James DeLuna Sets.
James, thank you very much for coming in.
Okay.
In a medical emergency, most people's first thought is to call an ambulance, but it's a little-known fact that for many of us, lives, first responders, will arrive before the paramedics. Based at stations all over our towns and villages, they can issue vital advice, give CPR, and even use defibrillators in those vital moments before the ambulance arrives. But they're not doctors, and they're often everyday people with normal jobs who volunteer in their spare time to save lives. And as call-outs rise, they do need help from the public. James Dunn has more.
It's not considered an emergency service, but there are literally thousands of people alive today because of them who would disagree. In 2014, they attended more than 18,000 calls in Lincolnshire. They saved 91 lives with defibrillators alone.
I think people might not be aware of the statistics that have come out for the last year, and that is, of the calls that we've been on, just over 50% of the calls we went on, we arrived before the ambulance. That's not because we've got a bad ambulance service. We actually have a fantastic ambulance service. It's because our responders live in the community, and therefore they can arrive at the 999 call very quickly.
But the number of call-outs is rising. In December, they attended more than 2,000 calls in Lincolnshire, up 30% on the previous year. But unlike the NHS, the public purse can't pick up the bill. It costs over £1 million a year to run the service, but they get just £300,000 from clinical commissioning groups.
That does put strain on us. It puts strains on the responders. They're putting a lot of hours in there at the moment. And what we need is more responders, and we need people financially to donate and support us.
There are numerous charities in our area. Lives is a very important one, and we do need to raise awareness and raise funding for Lives, which is needed.
And it's not just money they need. They're around 40 volunteers short in northern Lincolnshire alone, and it's in urban areas where they're lacking.
Some of the villages we've got are quite well supported, but in the towns, obviously it's a big area. It's very difficult for Lives responders to get through to cover a big area because obviously we don't travel on blues. We have to keep to the speed limit. So in the big towns and cities, we do need quite a few responder groups.
More local dialect now, the inscrutable words that are what you say.
Can't remember that one.
Getting told off.
Getting told off.
Oh, my mother used to do that to me, telling me off.
Somebody's telling you off.
Talk to rather voraciously.
You're in trouble, you're getting played over, someone's upset with you.
Getting told off.
Shouted at.
You've been told off. It's a typical word, that chowder, isn't it? You get told off. He's been chowed, she's been chowed. She's been told off.
Told off. Shouted at. Told off by mum and dad.
Shouted
Getting
at.
grief in here.
Getting grief. Told off. Told off.
You're getting told off. Something like told off you.
Never heard it before. James Dunn joins me now to scrutinise business in our local council chambers. James.
Hello, Hugh.
What's going on in local democracy?
Well, the first time I've said this, but actually, this week, not a great deal. It's a bit of a quiet week in the chamber, I'm afraid.
We're not being governed, I see. I feel
Well,
liberated.
in North East Lincolnshire, there's not a meeting again until the 18th of February, and that's when the Cabinet meet. Interestingly, though, we heard today that Chris Shaw, the leader, is stepping down, so, maybe he's busy trying to make arrangements, but...
well, we've known that for a long time. He made that public on a hot topic before Christmas.
Yes, well, here it comes anyway. I mean, he's made a big, and I don't know what's changed, but, he's actually, I think he's confirmed it rather than said that he would, and I think anyone who knows politics will know that they're two very different things sometimes.
Right, okay.
So yes, those meetings will, some point next year, be a lot less entertaining than perhaps they were before.
Oh, well, he was always good value, wasn't he? Whatever
yes,
you love him or
definitely.
loathe him, he's a sort of Marmite politician.
Yeah.
Any signs of who might be replacing him is the leader of the Labour group?
We'll just have to wait and see. I'm sure people will have their suspicions, but we'll see.
Very well, good.
In North Links, also not a great deal going on. Nothing really until Tuesday next week, when it's the health scrutiny meeting. We'll wait and see what the agenda says about that one.
Well, various hospitals in northern Lincolnshire, both the trusts affecting northern Lincolnshire, some hospitals having just recently come out of special measures.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a long
remaining.
time probably really since they're out of special measures. I mean, they're struggling like any hospitals are with A&E times, but actually those ones in North Lincolnshire and northern Lincolnshire in general actually tend to be doing a little bit better than the ones in Hull, which brings me to my next point.
Go on.
In Hull, there actually are some things going on. So we've got the Health and Social Wellbeing Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and that is actually on the 13th of Feb. 10 till 12:30. That's a report from Yorkshire Ambulance Service, so they're going to be talking about how things are going in Hull. And despite all that we've heard about A&E times there, interestingly, the ambulance times aren't too bad. So Yorkshire Ambulance Trust, as a trust, they're targeted on how many RED patients, that's people with life-threatening conditions, they reach within 8 minutes. Now, they have missed the 75% target as a trust, but in Hull, in East Yorkshire, they've actually hit that target in the year to date, and they're only very marginally below it, less than 1% below that 75% in the month to date. So actually, not too bad. So we know it's problems with the A&E department rather than people being delivered there.
And that 8 minutes, that crucial 8 minutes, that rather emphasises the importance of the people you were reporting on earlier in this programme, the Horncastle
It
first
certainly
responders.
does, because if you don't reach that 8 minutes, then these are the guys who will be there beforehand, and they are trained to do emergency treatment, so they could be the one with a defibrillator literally saving your life.
Starting your heart.
Yeah,
Yep.
everyday guys as well, which makes it even more interesting.
One more.
Yeah, one more. I mean, also in Hull, I'm afraid, because as I say, it's a little bit quiet in the East Riding as well. Nothing going on really, apart from another health meeting, and that's on the 12th of February. So,
very quickly, one more in Hull, James. Just very quickly, what is it?
Yes, there's a meeting basically. They're going to be discussing call centre targets. It doesn't sound very interesting, but 15% less. But they've been taking 15% longer, and they think a lot of that is down to council tax benefits.
James, thank you very much. Over now to Dan Kemp for the sport.
Hull City have moved out of the Premier League relegation zone with a 2-0 win over Aston Villa last night. New boy Darmen Doy scored and assisted in the game, which saw Nikita Jelavic open the scoring in the first half. Despite not having the ball for large periods of the game, the Tigers took their chances and move up to 15th in the league. Elsewhere, Scunthorpe United drew 1-1 at Coventry City. The Iron took the lead through ex-Coventry man Gary McSheffrey, but were pegged back in added time at the end of the game by a Marcus Tudgay effort, meaning the side shared the spoils. North Ferriby United's FA Trophy semi-final opponents have been decided. Bath City beat Dover 2-1 last night to set up a tie with the Villagers, of which the first leg will take place in Bath on Saturday the 21st of this month. The return game at the Visual Media Stadium will be a week later, with the aggregate winners heading to Wembley to face Wrexham or Torquay, both of the Conference Premier. Back to Scunthorpe United, and their on-loan midfielder Jacob Murphy will not be staying at the club until after his current loan deal expires. He made 3 starts during his 1-month loan at Glanford Park, but returns to Carrow Road immediately. In ice hockey, the Hull Stingrays have a rare bit of midweek action to look forward to tonight. The Rays are up in Scotland taking on the Braehead Clan with a 6:30 face-off, and the side are looking to build on their tremendous 5-2 win over the Nottingham Panthers from the weekend. Hull FC utility forward Jordan Thompson has signed a 2-year contract extension with the Black and Whites, extending his time at the KC Stadium to at least 2017. Having signed from Castleford Tigers at the start of last season, he featured in nearly every game for FC last term. And don't hesitate to contact us if you've got any sports stories. That's all for now.
Thanks very much, Dan. That's all we have time for, except to say just quickly, James DeLuna's details, if you want to see that remarkable work, flickr.com/photos/James DaLuna, all one word lowercase. If you have a story for us, please go to our Facebook or Twitter pages. Details are on the screen. Email news@estuary.tv or phone Grimsby 31553. Until tomorrow, good evening.
Hello and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. Thursday will be mostly cloudy but dry, just the odd brighter interval possible, more of a light breeze developing late in the day, and a maximum temperature of 7 degrees. Friday will be breezy with a little rain at times.